I'm Howard Phillips Lovecraft, and today's question comes to us from Jude, who wants to know about Azathoth, that amorphous blight of nethermost confusion that blasphemes and bubbles at the center of all infinity. You know, Azathoth. Particularly, he is curious about the way I described Azathoth as mindless or as a blind idiot god, and wants to know just what this suggests, not only about Azathoth's own mental capacity, but also about the nature of intelligence itself. Now, when I was writing about Azathoth and incorporating this entity into my stories, I was exploring my own interests in mythologies and creating gods and what they suggest about the world at large. As someone who was devoted to mythology, I was fascinated by how stories of gods tell you about people. And Azathoth allowed me to create a cosmos that was so ineffable, so alien. There was no ability to be in communion with the very gods of this existence. And so, when it comes to the question of intelligence, well, I think they're in a whole other planes, but nevertheless, I think it is worth looking at how we use intelligence, not only in our stories, but in society. I think if you were to be asked just what is intelligence, you would have some notion of mental capacity and ability to recall facts or synthesize information, but really, cultures have approached intelligence in very different ways. In the classical world, intelligence was seen almost as an external force, the idea of genius or divine inspiration or revelation, or even the idea of the muses themselves. These are all external forces, like wisdom on a doorstep, shouting. Then, after centuries, we began to think of intelligence as more innate, as more biologically determined. We thought of it as something that you could measure and quantify. You could sit down and get an idea of just what the intelligence of an individual was, just like you could measure the shape of their skull. And indeed, oftentimes, the two happened. You know what, we don't need to get into it. Nowadays, we understand, at least to some degree, how little we understand. And I think that more nuanced, complicated view of intelligence is far more compelling. There's not just one intelligence, you see. People now understand that there's a quantitative intelligence, an emotional intelligence, kinesthetic intelligence. We understand there's a whole range of neurodiversity and how it impacts just how we think and how we view and how we interact with the world. Indeed, if anything, intelligence now is seen as its own amorphous blight of nethermost confusion. So you see, it all fits together. Now, one more thing about Azathoth. I note that there seemed to be this strange habit of people going around putting up monoliths and other large, inexplicable artifacts. And it reminds me of a few years ago out in Oklahoma, when some wags decided to erect a statue of Azathoth and set it up without word or explanation. And if that is the same thing happening now, if these same perverse, irresponsible persons are out there putting up these monoliths in honor to Azathoth, well done. I think that such creative outlets are always worthwhile, particularly when they get you out of doors. As always, I'm Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Thank you.